What is censorship? Well, put simply, censorship is when someone with power forces the people around them to not speak of things they don't like. So someone in power doesn't want to hear about something, and so they put out a command, and nobody shall speak of this. Usually censorship covered stuff that were considered morally outrageous. In other words, things the church, who was once the bastion of power, did not like. So the church decided what was and wasn't okay for people to know and think and talk about, and then using censorship, the power of their might, anybody who had the gall to go ahead and talk about it anyway would be silenced. So ways that they were silenced, well, you could be burned at the stake as a heretic. Most often you were hanged. You very often were put in a dungeon and tortured. So it wasn't simply breaking your press so that you couldn't print books. There was a whole lot of ways to censor you. Then we came along to the modern day when that sort of stuff was a little too extreme, and we have other forms of censorship. Now we had goodly white folks censoring everybody else to make sure that they maintained their homogenous society of goodly white folks, where everybody pretended to be so moral and upright, and this camera will be moral and upright. Everybody was pretending to be moral and upright, and pretending they didn't cheat on their wives, pretending their wives weren't drunkards, that kind of thing. And so, protecting the upper crust, as it were, through censorship. So, for instance, if a newspaper or a magazine wanted to print something about, smoking marijuana, getting drunk, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all the fun stuff, in order to maintain that image that nobody engaged in that sort of behavior and protect the children, they had various fines and laws and could even jail you. I remember a guy in my hometown actually was thrown in jail for a week as well as fined because he put together a T-shirt it was a custom, you pick out your letters and the T-shirt shop presses them onto your shirt for you, and then you run around walk around wearing a T-shirt with your own custom message on it. And this kid wanted the F word on it, and the T-shirt shop obliged and wound up taking the hit for it. The guy wound up fighting a political battle about it, and that's what censorship was. Well, and so, to some degree that still exists. Facebook getting all upset over a woman's nipple, people freaking out over wardrobe malfunctions. That kind of censorship is still out there. And network broadcasting channels still have to bleep out the 7 deadly words. There's a new form of censorship showing up, and it's the one that the corporations are doing. See, a corporation is a body with power these days. They used to be just businesses trying to get power, but now pretty much they have all the power. Almost all the power. Corporations are getting close to ruling the world. That's certainly what they're after. They definitely want global domination, and they want it all to go their way, because a corporation, of course, is nothing more than a paper entity owned by a wealthy and powerful man who wants to make sure that his sons follow after him, just like any kings of old. So the corporations have a new form of censorship. They call it advertiser friendly on YouTube. That's where they pretend that what they really mean is it's only stuff that keeps the corporation's good image. So, somebody standing in front of a corpse in a forest, for instance, is not advertiser friendly, because anybody who runs an ad in front of that video automatically gets associated with the suicide forest and the corpse. And so nobody who has money to spend on advertising wants their ad in front of that video. Same goes with anything that's fringe culture, like transgender, like LGBTQ. But they're not just using it for keeping their wholesome family image for the rarefied minority groups of people that still worry about pretending to be godly Christians. That's the goofiest thing. They're not even the people with the most money. It's not about that anymore. People are over that. There's no longer a majority of people who are worried about whether or not their society is properly moral. They teach their children right from wrong instead of trying to hide wrong from them and hope that they don't pick it up somewhere in spite of the teachings. Because they've learned. Kids are going to pick it up anyway. Long before YouTube came along, I remember being a kid on the bus asking another kid how to spell the F word. As it happens, that kid didn't know, and it was some years before I learned. But, it was elementary school. And we were all very white, and we were all very privileged. I grew up in a comfortable neighborhood. So, these days, what are they censoring? Yeah, if I stand in the sun like that, then you still won't see a thing. So what are they censoring these days? They're censoring anything that gives anyone a hint that there's an alternative lifestyle that doesn't involve working for a wage at the behest of someone else, paying your taxes directly out of that wage, and then going home and spending what you have, plus what you haven't got in the form of loans, on corporate offerings. All of the cheap crap, because what they want from you is keep shopping. You are a consumer. That is your role. As a consumer, you are the engine that drives the wheels of trade, and the wheels of trade drive the profit. It's a complicated system that involves the abuse of workers in foreign nations where they have no rights, and it involves the overwhelming of workers who do have rights. So if you're fortunate enough to be in a nation where they pay a decent wage, then you're expected to spend that wage. You're expected to spend to the point that you can never stop working and continue to spend. That's your role. And if it makes you fat and sick and unhappy, they'll sell you something for that. So these days, advertiser friendly is turning out to mean something more along the lines of corporation friendly, corporate friendly, consumer friendly. So it's not enough not to show your nipples or not to swear or, to keep sweet. They love people like Graveyard Girl, who spends a fortune on little plastic things wrapped in little plastic wrappers and makes everybody want to buy the little plastic things in the little plastic wrappers. And damn to hell the cost. Oh, there's a floating pile of plastic in the ocean. We'll sell you something for that. They don't care. They never will care, because profit is what motivates them and drives them, and it's a mental illness that nobody's trying to cure. And advertiser friendly now, really, what it really means is, don't let on to the other people in the world if you found an escape, if you found a way out. So all my nomad channels are suffering under advertiser friendly rules. They're being told, and they're not even being told what it is about their videos that's not advertiser friendly. They're just out there posting their lives and posting their little solutions, and they're not swearing, and there's no nudity, there's no sex, there's no drunkenness, there's no drugs. It's clean as a freaking whistle, and yet they're getting dinged with this advertiser-friendly content thing, where they're not able to monetize their videos. And YouTube is just the tip of the spear, the vanguard of the army. There's more to come, and it will be interesting. And if you're enjoying your consumerist lifestyle, you're fine. You're going to be fine. I hope you're going to be fine. You're probably going to get sick. But of course, when you get cancer or one of the enormous volume of immune disorders, It will be blamed on a variety of things other than the consumerist lifestyle. I promise you. And you'll be able to go to sleep at night thinking you're innocent, thinking, why me, poor me, and, I sure hope they can sell me something for it tomorrow. Because that's the future right now. Is that all the future there is? No. There are paths of futures branching off where people learn to say no. And some of us will walk those paths. And there are a variety of futures possible, and some of them include Armageddon, and some of them include this blissful future where we all have all the power we want, where robots do all of the grunt work, and human beings no longer have to earn a wage because they can spend their time making and creating and inventing, and wouldn't that be lovely? We'll just wait and see what comes to the future, Every time you look at the future, it's like you're standing on the round table of a railway yard machine shop where there's a circular bit. Actually, I don't think they do it that way anymore, but they used to put a track on a giant circular table which could rotate. So they'd drive the train onto it, and then they'd rotate it to point at which garage the train was supposed to drive into. And I've always thought of the future as being like that. Each one of those garages, however, are a separate path, and there's a myriad of directions you can point your feet. And the one that you're pointed at is the one you're most likely to go into, but you could shift a degree to either side. You're unlikely to make a major turn and take a completely different path, but it's possible. And so there's always hope. There's always maybe. There's always the X factor. Factor X. Yeah, which is now the name of a TV show. I know. But censorship these days is not about moral goodliness. These days, it's about keeping everybody on the consumerist path. Keep consuming. Don't ask questions. Don't boycott this company. Don't think about your dollar as a vote. Don't think about how your money and where you spend it is the greatest power you have. Just buy that thing that looks so interesting. Whip out your credit card. What, your credit card's full? We'll give you another one. Oh, just ask us. We'll give you a raise. For a while there, they used to just hand out credit limit raises to make sure you kept spending. As soon as you neared that mark, unless you had failed to make any payments, they would raise your limit. And I got up to $20,000 debt just on that alone without ever asking for an increase in my limit. And like a good little monkey, the minute the limit went up, I went and bought something until I had a $20,000 credit card from what had originally been a $2,000 credit card. Now, my government, being not entirely overwhelmed by the corporations, actually made a rule against that. Now you have to deliberately ask for a credit raise, which I won't do. So that helps. But yeah, that's how they do it. Good luck out there.